Rhyme and Reason. I'm now joined by the multi-platinum selling, award-winning lyricist, songwriter and mother, Tori Amos.
Hello, G.
How you doing?
Really good.
First, I'd like to begin by reading the foreword from a book about slam poetry that you wrote. If we could express ourselves another way, we wouldn't be writers. I think that we write songs or poems because we don't express ourselves exactly the way we want to in our everyday lives. When you write, you can be anybody, anything, and no one controls what your relationship is in a song or a poem or who you are, and nobody owns it. Tori, welcome to Rhyme and Reason.
Never was a cornflake girl. Thought that was a good solution, hanging with the raisin girls. She's gone to the other side.
Tori, let me begin by asking you, in general, what part has poetry played in your life?
Well, I guess in many ways, I'm a recluse. And the deepest relationships that I have in my life, other than my mother, my husband, and my daughter, would be with the songs that come and visit me. And the songs are creatures that have poetry that are woven within their beings. They are consciousness and they exist. I just have to have experiences in order to translate them.
Looking for a savior in these dirty streets. Looking for a savior beneath these dirty sheets.
You were born in North Carolina.
Yes.
To a religious family. You are the daughter of a reverend.
Yes, Methodist minister.
And your mother studied English.
Yes, she did.
So English literature played a very big part in her life.
A huge part. And I think she would escape to poetry when being a minister's wife got too confrontational, because parishioners are not always the most compassionate group of people in the world. I found that some of the harshest judgments came from church people themselves.
So she used to read you poems?
Yes, she would read me Bible stories as well, because my mother is a combination of both. And so she would balance out, I think, the Bible stories with Edgar Allan Poe. Okay. Sprinkle a little spice into my life.
Right.
So around 5 or 6, I remember her reading The Raven to me.
She read The Raven to you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, she did.
I found Poe quite scary. I found him very, very macabre.
You are about to enter hell, Bartolome. Hell! The netherworld. The infernal regions. The abode of the damned. The place of torment. Pandemonium. Abaddon. Tophet. Gehenna. Naraka. The pit. And the pendulum.
How did you react to the wonderful musings of Mr. Poe?
It's affected me my whole life as a writer. Having a little scary in your life as a piano player, and as a woman who doesn't, screaming isn't what I'm known for.
Yeah.
That you find your power in your content, not necessarily how loud you are.
Snow can wait, I forgot my mittens. Wipe my nose, get my new boots on. I get a little warm in my heart when I think of winter. I put my hand in my father's glove.
And that's why heavy metal guys, some of those people will show up and just connect with certain compositions I've written, because it's about the content sometimes, the scariness.
Mirror, mirror, where's the crystal palace? But I only can see myself.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken satin certain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. That it is, and nothing more."
Past the mission, behind the prison tower. Past the mission, I once knew a hot girl. Past the mission, the closing of the hour. Past the mission, I smell the roses.
You're in Maryland, and your parents enroll you into the Peabody Institute, where you train to be a classical pianist.
I was accepted at 5.
That's really young, isn't it? They accepted gifted youngsters, but you're probably one of the youngest people to ever to be enrolled in there.
That's what they say. And so I was just really fortunate that at 2.5, I could pretty much play what I heard. And so I could play before I could talk. My brother would bring home records that my father really wasn't very fond of. But my brother was almost 10 years older than I.
Okay.
So he'd be 15 when I was
so
5.
So teenager, adolescence.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he would come in and say, "You have to learn this before Dad gets home from church." And I would sit there and listen and study it and play it back so that my dad wouldn't know where it came from. And he'd be sitting there reading his paper, and I would be playing something from The Doors, Jim Morrison, who, of course, was the devil.
Don't you love her madly? Don't you need her badly? Don't you love her ways? Tell me what you say.
So you had your mother reading you Edgar Allan Poe, and your brother playing you Jim Morrison.
And my dad reading the Bible.
And your dad reading the Bible. That answers a lot of questions. Now, another work of art that you've mentioned is at Walden.
Yes, I resisted reading it, but we were forced. All Americans were forced to read this.
That's what I'm gathering. I'm gathering that this is probably the equivalent of, I suppose, Romeo and Juliet, or the First World War poets that I studied in school.
There was a teacher, Mrs. Barrett, and she really thought that I was being lazy when it came to being open to certain poets. And so she really graded me down. And I'm disappointed in you because you can do better. You really can. And if you want to write songs and be a composer, then you really need to step up here.
Oh, these little earthquakes. Here we go again.
You're now performing. What then made you decide to say, I want to be a star?
Well, I was kicked out of the Peabody Conservatory at 11, and I think in the beginning the idea was that I would have the ability and the desire to become a concert pianist. And although I loved Prokofiev and the Russians and certain classical composers, it wasn't my language. And so my dad felt like, all right, if this is what you're going to choose instead of becoming a concert pianist and then making music for the Lord and the church, then you need to learn how to do it professionally. He took me down to Georgetown in Washington, D.C. He had his dog collar on. He dressed up, he took his Bible, and we went to try and find me a job playing music in piano bars. We went around to all these different clubs, and they would reject us looking at this minister as if he had too much communion, before he came. And it was really the gay community that opened their doors to us. And there was a little club called Mr. Henry's of Georgetown, that said, look, Reverend, she can play for tips, and if they don't boo her out, then she can stay and come back next week. And that was the beginning.
So what was the moment like when you said you're playing around DC and Maryland and you say to yourself, I'm going to LA? Was there anything that sparked that moment?
I had a friend, Steve Himmelfarb, who had moved to LA, and he would call me up and just say, you really are going to destroy your life if you don't leave there. You have to leave your parents. You're 21. You've got to get out. And that was the beginning. So
now the little girl has now moved to LA. What was it like?
It's almost as if I had been born again, but not as a right-wing Christian, but as a soul that had been trapped, really, in the suburbs. And all of a sudden, it was a different way of thinking.
On my way up north, up on the Venture, I pulled back the hood, and I was talking to
people were more open, experimenting with sounds and music, and I also was exposed to Native American ways of thinking from the Southwest, Hindu, Buddhism, all kinds of the Eastern mysticisms.
Different forms of spirituality.
Yes.
Yeah. Did your poetical influences change as well?
Totally changed. I discovered Rimbaud. I discovered Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton. And that was really, talk about a universe opening to me.
Cheerful, one-armed and black, the gallows dangled paladins, Satan's skinny skeletons, dancing bones of the Saladins. Christmas carols fill the air. Small black puppets face the sky. Messer Beelzebub makes them dance, smacking heads and yanking ties. Quaking puppets join spindling arms, black organ pipes swaying high above. Their chest once pressed to maidens' breasts, now coitally collide, disgusting in love. 3 cheers for dancers disemboweled. There's a room to writhe on the killing floor. Is it a battle or is it a dance? Who cares? Mad Beelzebub fiddles evermore. Someone unstring these grim commanders, who underhanded read rosaries of love. Broken fingers count pale vertebrae, no monastery this for the dead above. And in this dance macabre as mist, one mad skeleton can't stay in check. Like a spooked horse he leaps into the red sky, stiff noose still coiled around his neck. His little fingers grip a bony thigh, squeezing out laughter more like moans, and like an actor lost in the drama retakes the stage to the applause of bones.
Smokey Joe, you're calling at the station.
How could you see Rambo in your writing?
Well, I think through the years, it crops up quite a bit on every record. There is a song called Smokey Joe that was on American Doll Posse, and it talks about my wanting to kill a man who has hurt and injured and broken my spiritual sister.
It's too easy, terrifies me. It's too easy.
For a minister's daughter, this became my Bible. I needed to explore through poetry feelings that I had that were not being met. My feelings were being met by shame and by someone pointing a finger at you saying you need an exorcism or you have too many thoughts of the dark side. Instead of it being a natural progression that as you become a woman, many women search for their dark prince instead of becoming the dark prince themselves. And at a certain point, I realized that Lucifer was not just who we thought he was, but was a she and had a lovely Chanel white suit on.
Father Lucifer, you never look so sane. You always did prefer the drizzle to the rain. Tell me that you're still in love with that milkmaid. How the Lizzies, how's your Jesus Christ been? Hey.
One of the songs that really struck me as, I think it's an amazing piece of songwriting. I think it's a very bold subject to tackle was your song Me and a Gun, that talks about a horrific sexual assault that you endured, I think was around that time. Did the writings that you've been reading give you the confidence to broach that subject, or was it something that you just had to do anyway?
I started reading Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton, and I think that kind of emotion, the ripping off of skin so that you get to feelings that hide underneath muscle and bone, that's what began to loosen and awaken feelings that I had repressed and forced into a cell and muzzled. And I needed to see how other poets talked about their pain before I could do it myself.
Was me and a gun and a man on my back, and I sang Holy, Holy as he buttoned down his pants. You can laugh, it's kind of funny, the things you think in times like these. Like I haven't seen Barbados, so I must get out of this.
I have done it again. 1 year in every 10, I manage it. A sort of walking miracle, my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade, my right foot a paperweight, my face a featureless fine Jew linen. Peel off the napkin, oh my enemy, do I terrify? The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth, the sour breath will vanish in a day. Soon the flesh the grave cave ate will be at home on me. And I, a smiling woman, I am only 30, and like the cat I have 9 times to die. This is number 3. What a trash to annihilate each decade. What a million filaments the peanut-crunching crowd shoves in to see, them unwrap me hand and foot, the big striptease. Gentlemen, ladies, these are my hands, my knees. I may be skin and bone, nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened, I was 10. It was an accident. The second time I meant to last it out and not come back at all. I rocked shut as a seashell. They had to call and pick the worms off me like sticky pearls. Dying is an art, like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. It's easy enough to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's the theatrical, come back in broad day to the same place, the same face, the same brute amused shout, a miracle that knocks me out. There is a charge for the eyeing of my scars. There is a charge for the hearing of my heart. It really goes. And there is a charge, a very large charge, for a word or a touch or a bit of blood, or a piece of my hair on my clothes. So, Herr Doctor, so Herr Enemy, I am your opus, I am your valuable, the pure gold, baby, that melts to a shriek.
I haven't seen Barbados, so I must get out of this.
That was Lazarus by Sylvia Plath. And from hearing that, a certain Charles Bukowski poem comes to mind. He was a 60s beat poet from LA, and this poem is called The Laughing Heart.
Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is a light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight in you.
I wish I could have heard that then. But you find your way. I think I related to some of these poets, not knowing necessarily what they were writing about, not until I went to Auschwitz and understood what I think Sylvia Plath's poem was talking about, I applied it to what made sense to me at that time.
You come over to England quite a few times, and you currently live in England at the moment, living in Cornwall.
My husband is British, so he has a home here.
Welcome to England, he shall. Welcome to my world.
And I understand that you're a fan of the English poet Keats.
I happened to be in Ireland, and I was exposed to this artwork in Cork that had the Eve of St. Agnes, the poetry connected with the artwork. And I was really taken to this other world, into another dimension. And Ophelia, a song that was on one of the later records, started to come alive and take me by the hand.
Ophelia, your secret is safe.
They told her how, upon St. Agnes Eve, young virgins might have visions of delight, and soft adorings from their loves receive upon the honeyed middle of the night. If ceremonies due they did aright, as supple as to bed they must retire, and calque supine their beauties lily white, nor look behind nor sideways but require of heaven with upward eyes for all that they desire.
You must remember
You released an album, Strange Little Girls, where you did cover versions of songs by male artists which were referencing women. And the most, I suppose, surprising choice, the one that flagged the album, was Bonnie and Clyde 97 by the rapper Eminem.
Come on, hey, we going to the beach. Grab a couple of toys and let Dada strap you in the car seat. Oh, where's Mama? She's taking a little nap in the trunk. Oh, that smell. Dada must have run over a skunk.
I have nieces and nephews in the States, and a couple were very excited about his work. And I thought to myself, they're not listening to what he's saying.
Because the song is about him and his daughter in a car, and the body of the daughter's mother is in the back of the car.
And he's justifying talking to her in a way where I felt, as I stepped into the mother's being, she had no control.
Wake up, sleepyhead, we're here. Before we pray, we're gonna take mommy for a bit of walk along the pier. Katie, don't cry, honey, don't get the wrong idea. Mama's too sleepy to hear you screaming in her ear. That's why
I thought to myself, okay, right then, I'd like to do something.
Baby, your dada loves you, and I'm always gonna be here for you, no matter what happens. You're all I got in this world. I'd never give you up for nothing.
You were a mother by then.
Yes.
So did the passion take on a new intensity? Was it the responsibility of motherhood that put you instead to say, right, this is what you're saying, now this is what I'm going to say?
I think motherhood was probably the single most important event for me in my whole life. It's completely changed how I see a lot of things, looking out for my daughter now, always first. I'm a mother lioness.
And you're friends with a novelist and poet, Neil Gaiman, and he wrote a poem for your daughter.
Neil came and visited me. He's sort of like a spiritual brother. And he wrote this before Tash was born for her. It's one of those mantras for a little girl to live by.
Dull days at 40, false friends at 15, let her have brave days and truth. Let her go places that we've never been, trust and delight in her youth. Ladies of grace, ladies of favour, and the ladies of merciful night. This is the prayer for a blueberry girl, grant her your clearness of sight. Words can be worrisome, people complex, motives and manners unclear. Grant her the wisdom to choose her right path, free from unkindness and fear. Tell her stories and dance in the rain, somersaults, tumble and run. Her joys must be high as her sorrows are deep. Let her grow like a weed in the sun.
'Cause she's love, and I am love. Watching you, watching her
now, as you say, you are a mother. Has that had an influence on your songwriting as well?
Yes, it's had an influence. There is a musician that lives inside, that is an observer, that can't separate herself from a mother's viewpoint because it's in the blood now. The need to protect, that instinct. So I recognized that becoming a mother was something that I needed to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Just because of my life and trying to find that wholeness from the subjugation of women in Christianity for so long and trying to find what I was made up of. Becoming a mother finally gave me that missing key that I had been looking for completeness, to feel complete. It doesn't mean I don't struggle with things. It doesn't mean I don't have very blue days. I do. But because I'm a mom, it's a different responsibility. And I think I resonate in a tiny, tiny way with Mother Earth and what she must go through as a mother. To so many, I'm just a mother to one.
When you gonna make up your mind? When you gonna love you as much as I do?
So as a mother, what poems would you read to your child?
Different for different times. Young girls going into the teenage years need a different voice than the voice that a girl needs before she has had her first kiss.
Your mother read this to you yesterday.
Yes.
And you would read this to your daughter, and you read it to us. So this is Emily Dickinson and...
I'm nobody, who are you? I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name, the livelong June, to an admiring bug.
All the right said.
Tori, thank you very much for sharing your poems with us, sharing your stories with us, sharing yourself with us. Thank you very much for coming down to Rhyme and Reason. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.